and actually it was John Cena who said this, just think about this. When you have a critically ill child and they get to have anything they want and their wish is to meet you, what an honor that is.
Welcome to Wait, What? Sportsbiz Chat with DP and McGhee, the podcast that takes an often irreverent, sometimes cynical, and on occasion even a serious look at the business of sports. I'm your co-host, David Parro.
And I'm Tim McGhee.
Well, Tim, unless something big breaks over the next few weeks, which, given what has happened this year, is entirely possible, this will be our final podcast of 2025, a year that has seen us produce a whopping record-setting 44 episodes.
Wow.
We rolled out a new logo and branding elements. We grew our audience, expanded social channels, continued to add countries to our list of where people listen, including many that Wayne Gretzky would not stand a chance of pronouncing. All in all, a very impressive year, I'd have to say, and I hope you agree with that. It makes me excited for what's ahead. Maybe a much-deserved sponsorship or two. Enough of this, though, how great this podcast is, because we know it is. But, Tim, what's on your mind?
Yeah, enough about us. What about you listeners? What do you think of us? Let's start with college football. A lot going on there. I want to start by saying that I was wrong. At least it appears that I'm wrong, because I typically am wrong. But on our last episode, my prediction, and it wasn't a formal prediction, so I give myself a bit of an out, was that Brett Yormark in the Big 12 would go after Pete Bevacqua and Notre Dame and try to get them into the Big 12 conference. Well, shortly after we posted that episode, Brett Yormark, commissioner of the Big 12, was quoted as saying that Pete Bevacqua, the AD at Notre Dame's behavior when they were not named a playoff participant for the college football championship, he called his behavior egregious. So I guess I'm not a great matchmaker.
No, listen, you said something that I think was entirely logical when you're looking at Notre Dame, and is there a conference that makes sense now, given the major growth in number of schools of the Big Ten, of the Atlantic Coast Conference, and the SEC? In a way, the Big 12 could have been a logical place, which wouldn't have been some years ago. But Notre Dame may have missed the boat on this entirely. You even did make a comment that I think you referenced something Boomer Esiason has said about people not scheduling them. And that certainly could be the case. You know, the ACC still has this agreement in place. Notre Dame's television deal is through, I think, 2029. So they have that money, but they're in a weird situation. And the one thing I don't think either of us would ever say about Brett Yormark is that he doesn't speak his mind, and he had an opportunity and he did it. At the same time, Brett's a pretty established negotiator, pretty established businessman. He could have been doing this to lay groundwork. Who knows? I still think Notre Dame is a get for any of the conferences that may be interested in them. Their brand is a little tarnished. We both, I think, agreed that given their position within the college football playoff world, the ecosystem of that, and they do have a major seat at the table, they shouldn't have been so quick to blow off the bowl game. Both of us agreed that they had a major right to be annoyed. If one school had the biggest right to be annoyed, I'm not saying the CFP selection committee necessarily got it wrong, but they had the biggest right to be annoyed, but they could have handled it much better. And Brett called them out on it.
Yeah, I still think the Big Ten makes the most sense for Notre Dame for a couple of reasons. One, geographically, you still have those schools there in the Midwest, right, the core of the conference. But when you look at the other sports besides football, basketball, men's and women's basketball, and the so-called Olympic sports, which are a part of ACC. And I'm thinking particularly of lacrosse. The Big Ten has made great strides in creating good programs within the lacrosse world, right? So you have Maryland, you have Rutgers, you have even Ohio State and Michigan, and Johns Hopkins, which is a historically very successful program. And they play men's lacrosse in the Big Ten. I think it still makes sense at some point for Notre Dame to join the Big Ten, because what's gonna happen, or I should say, if it happens that schools don't want to play Notre Dame in football because they don't see the benefit of it, Notre Dame's going to be out on an island, and they're going to have to swim to shore somewhere. So we'll see.
Yeah, the 5 games a season against ACC schools was great, I think, for the ACC, and it gave Notre Dame decent competition in, if they weren't scheduling, say, the top teams of the Big Ten. But that meant they were going to play Wake. I love that. I love the fact that, Notre Dame could come and visit Winston-Salem and play there, that, Notre Dame was generally going to win that game.
Right. With all due respect to the ACC, and I know they had a down year. So it's, BC's terrible. Rutgers was not very good. Syracuse
Rutgers is Big Ten now, man. I know it's hard to believe. Can you believe it?
Syracuse.
Yeah.
Syracuse, BC. Pardon me for putting Rutgers in there. Wake is Wake. Wake is not going to compete for a national championship. NC State is typically not going to play for a national championship. North Carolina is not going to play for a national championship. Duke is not going to play for a national championship.
Clemson, FSU, and Miami are the 3 schools that.
Yeah, but then what happens?
Louisville.
Yeah, then you wind up having a situation where you have 3 Harlem Globetrotters and the rest of the teams are Washington Generals, almost. Yes, there's the occasional upset and things like that. And I don't mean this to demean the other schools in the ACC, but top to bottom, the Big Ten is a much better football conference than the ACC.
And then you had a team like Indiana University this year, not only winning the regular season, winning the championship, and going on to take the number 1 spot in the CFP. And that's pretty amazing for a team that hasn't been all that great. Now, Wisconsin had a down year. Northwestern is generally going to be what Northwestern is. But then you look at the SEC, and the bottom dweller of the SEC generally was Vanderbilt, and look at what they've done with their program.
Yeah,
but I think it's great that you started with college, and we kicked this off with Brett and the comments he made about Bevacqua and Notre Dame. But Brett Yormark is very much at the center of the college sports world, not just because of those comments, but because of what it looks like the Big 12 is going to pull off as the first conference to take a major capital infusion from a private equity company, but not giving that company or those companies ownership. The companies involved are RedBird and Weatherford. So originally it was being investigated possibly as an equity in, like these companies taking ownership of the conference. And eventually I think there was just so much pushback that was not a tenable situation for anyone. I think the Big Ten has gotten to that point as well where it's not going to work. But they are taking a major infusion of capital that could get doled out to the schools. And for the Big 12 to be able to be more competitive from an NIL standpoint, et cetera, with the Big 10 and the SEC, it's very significant. I remember when Brett got this job, and for those that have worked around Brett or know Brett, he's a massive taskmaster. He's one of these guys that's super, super driven. He's going to be aggressive in what he's doing. And I think he's earned a lot of respect from those, the presidents and so forth, to be able to pull some of this stuff off. So I got to hand it to him, because this could be the new model, right? This could be the model that college sports goes for, not at the conference level, not giving anybody equity in the conference, but then letting the schools do stuff, such as what Utah, a Big 12 school, is doing with granting private equity ownership of the athletic department at Utah. So this is the world we live in, and things are going to continue happening. But I will credit the Big 12, certainly behind the SEC and the Big 10, but I think from a football standpoint and probably a basketball standpoint now, ahead of the ACC, at least right now.
Mm-hmm.
And they're the first movers on this, and from a conference standpoint, that looks like it's getting across. I think it still has some approvals to go through.
It's interesting, and I think I have an MBA, but I don't know if you know that I actually have an MBA in finance, which has served me not at all, except perhaps in this next thing I'm going to say, which is private equity has a much higher threshold for risk, has a much higher threshold in terms of their expected returns on their investments. So I'm wondering why a Weatherford or a RedBird Capital would loan money to an entity like the Big 12 Number one, maybe they think it's sort of the Trojan horse that gets them in the door for later making an equity investment. But then number two, the question is, is that the best? If the Big 12 is going to take on debt, which is in effect what they're doing, right? Is this the best rate that they could have gotten, or could they have gotten it from a more traditional source like a bank? We won't know, but it's just something that I'd be very curious to see.
No, I think that's a really good point. I think it does show the interest that sports continue to have among private equity companies investing in pro sports, and obviously having looked a lot at the college market, and that if it couldn't be the traditional equity model, what other options are there? What other things are we involved in? And if they think that what's happened at Utah can continue, it opens that relationship up to the individual schools. I would think maybe that is one of the things that they're thinking about. And to your point, keeping that door open for further, a change in that strategy, I guess.
Yeah. A couple more things on college football. I think we have to touch on. One struck me a little bit personally. Diego Pavia came in second, a distant second in the most recent Heisman voting.
Not in his mind, he did.
And came out with a tweet, but true, so whatever it was, I forget what platform it was, that said "F the voters." Now, in my role at the Atlanta Tip-Off Club with the Naismith Awards, we are so grateful for our voting block of writers and past winners. And we trust them. We trust that they know what they're talking about, that we trust that they vote with integrity. And it wasn't particularly close when he lost to Mendoza. So I just thought, and he did come out, he did make what seemed to be a heartfelt and sincere apology. But in the quarterback position more than any others, you want somebody who shows grace under pressure, and he didn't do that, right? He felt he was upset that he lost, and he lashed out in, I thought, a very immature way.
It was hugely surprising. Obviously had an amazing year. Vanderbilt is, a serious team now, and he was a big piece of that. There's no doubt about it. But you can't deny what Indiana did and how exciting that offense was and what they did down the stretch. And I don't even know when the voting was, but I don't know. I didn't watch enough of Vanderbilt. I watched a fair amount of Fernando Mendoza, who went on to win it, the first player ever to win it from Indiana University, and he led that team. He led the Hoosiers to their first Big Ten championship in like 58 years.
He had that huge game against Penn State at the end of the game where he threw that's a Heisman
the most unbelievable moment. Drive, one of the most unbelievable drives I've ever seen. It was right, John Elway level, and throws that touchdown pass.
Right. If any one sequence won him the Heisman Trophy, that was it. But he had other moments like that as well.
I have a trivia question for you on this. Are you up for it?
Sure.
You mentioned Naismith. So he's the first Heisman winner from Indiana University.
Mm-hmm.
There have been two basketball players from Indiana that have won the Naismith. Who are they? It's not who I guessed, because I looked it up, and it's not who I would have guessed.
Well, the first one is Scott May.
Yeah, that one I would have guessed.
Scott May is going to be celebrating his 50th anniversary this year, so I know that.
You're very welcome for this platform I give you, by the way.
The other one, this is not my final answer, Regis. I was going to say, what do you call it? Isaiah Thomas, but it's not Isaiah Thomas.
Right.
Calbert Cheaney.
Calbert Cheaney, yes.
Yes. And I didn't look it up.
I would have thought Isaiah would have won it, because he was a really great college basketball. He's a really great pro as well.
Yes. Not Michael Jordan's favorite, though. Otherwise, he would have been on the Dream Team.
One quick thing on Heisman while we're at it. I'm actually excited for next year, because Jeff Price, past guest Jeff Price, formerly of the PGA of America, is going to be taking over I think the CEO role. I think they have some interesting, because of the trust. I'm not sure exactly what the titles will be, but we are definitely going to get him on late in the year before Heisman next year. He better do it and not diss his podcast friends at Wait What. So excited for him, and hopefully he won't have a an obnoxious player, saying stupid things after the.
Two-part trivia question for you.
Oh, no. You're so much better at this than I am.
Who looked after the first two ever Heisman Trophy sponsors? And for extra credit, what two brands were they?
Well, I'm guessing Tim McGhee.
Okay, you got that one.
AT&T.
No.
USAA.
Nope. You'll not guess them because neither one of them is particularly well known.
And neither of them is not. It's not.
And
it's
neither
not
one is
Nissan like is
no,
there now.
No, but it was an automotive company. It was actually Suzuki Motors, and they did their motorcycle, their car, and their marine. And then the other one was the U.S. Postal Service. So I looked after both of them.
Oh yeah, I remember that. Nice.
Yeah. So anyway, but before we get off college football, you want to talk about Sherrone Moore a little bit?
Like Michigan.
More like Michigas.
Michigan. What did Portnoy have to say? I didn't see anything come out about this yet.
Well, popular conventional wisdom is he's going to have a big say in who the next coach is.
Yeah.
Which, if you're trying to get away from scandal and all of this noise in the marketplace, he might not be the person you want in the committee to select a new coach. So the best line I heard was from a woman named Sarah, fangirl for NFL on X. I want to make sure I give proper credit to this. This Michigan scandal is the biggest scandal in college football since the last Michigan scandal.
Right.
I just thought that was a great line. Yeah, listen, threatening self-harm is not a funny
Nothing
thing.
to laugh about.
I don't want to make light of it. But he picked up butter knives and threatened to harm him. So what was he going to do? Spread marmalade? I mean, come on. It was obviously not a serious threat. But the one thing was he apparently was texting women at halftimes of games. He allegedly offered season tickets to a OnlyFans model if she and two of her friends would have a foursome with him. Now, I'm sorry. Wade Manuel, the athletic director of Michigan, he's going to be undergoing a lot of scrutiny, and rightfully so.
Deservedly so. I mean, it's not, and it's, they've had the issues on the basketball side as well. It's just ridiculous. Yeah.
And this is one of the best academic institutions in the country. I don't think there's any debate about that.
With one of the biggest national followings of a team, one of the most successful programs in history. Great undergrad program, amazing, highly rated law school, highly rated business school, just countless other programs, I'm sure, and a beautiful place. Before we jump, I just want to call out the special episode that we did with Adam Stern this past week, which we decided to do because the news breaking on the settlement between NASCAR and 2311 Racing and Front Row Motorsports. It was pretty amazing, and nothing major new has happened since. Other than, I think I just want to say it again, is it ended up playing out pretty much like we thought it might, but maybe even a stronger benefit to the teams. I don't think these owners whose valuations in their teams now because of the more permanent charters, I don't think they would have expected it would have been enhanced so much. And they are going to be kissing Michael's ass.
No kidding. I mean, I've heard estimates, and these are from owners or representatives of owners, that they believe that the value of that charter has doubled or tripled overnight, having gone from one of finite duration to what's being called evergreen. Yep. It's just, I think it helps the sport immensely. It provides a stability that the sport was lacking. Even if fans and the average layperson didn't see it, there was a sort of undercurrent that owners were constantly having to look for infusions of capital from private equity and things like that. You look at, teams like Roush Fenway, Fenway Sports making a big investment. Private equity is in Childress. Private equity is in most of the major teams. Now, going back just full circle before we take a quick break, just going back full circle to what we were talking about earlier about that infusion of capital into the Big 12. Now, because of this underlying value of the assets that these owners have, their access to capital is going to be helped immensely.
Yeah.
In terms doubt. And may not have to dilute their equity piece quite as much because they'll be able to get a better better rate on loans and lines of credit and that type of thing, which doesn't dilute the equity in those. So anyway, man,
Well,
I've
dude,
made more use of my MBA in finance in the last 20
you
minutes than
made
I have
sure
in 30
I did
years.
not think you were BSing me when you said you had an MBA in finance. So listen, I think that's a great time to go ahead and take a break. We have a great guest coming up, and we'll be right back.
It's time for our guest.
Because this is our last show of the year and this is the season of giving, we needed to think long and hard about the perfect guest, one that has an epic sports business background, but that operates in the nonprofit sector. We believe we have identified the perfect person to join us today. Flo Bryan is Chief Corporate Alliance Officer at Make-A-Wish America, a truly inspiring organization. Flo moved into the nonprofit world, becoming highly successful managing director of corporate alliances at the American Cancer Society, for instance. But she did that following an impressive career directly in sports, including major event management roles and then a stint at Disney where she was a critical part of an amazing team at Disney's Wide World of Sports. A very, very unique property. So, Flo, welcome to Wait What, and thanks for joining us. We know this is probably a busy time in your space, so we really appreciate you being here.
Oh, this is great. Great to see you both, David and Tim. Great to be here. Thank you.
So let's start from a 30,000-foot level. We'd love to hear your overview of what Make-A-Wish is all about. You've been at a couple different major organizations like this, and this is another important stop.
Well, everyone knows who Make-A-Wish is, which is great, 98% brand awareness. But Make-A-Wish, we create life-changing wishes for children with critical illnesses. Right? We grant about 16,000 wishes a year. And, I'm focused on, and we're focused on elevating brand awareness to mission understanding. Because like I said, most people have heard of Make-A-Wish, but they may not understand the impact of the work we do. Like, the wish isn't just something nice to do for a child. It really is supporting positive health outcomes and making a difference in their health journey. There's perception that the majority or all wish kids are terminally ill. That's not necessarily true, and actually the majority of our wish kids go on to manage and even overcome their illnesses. So really, Make-A-Wish is part of every community supporting children with critically ill illnesses and making a difference in their health journey.
Because this podcast is about the sports business, I want to ask you, how important are sports wishes to Make-A-Wish? And can you give us examples of the type of support that you get from the sports community?
Sure. Well, I'm going to say every wish is important, right? Every wish is important. But we do grant a lot of sports wishes every year, about 400 to 500. And the sports community has been incredible. All the leagues support us. I mean, we have tons of kids going to the Super Bowl. We had 25 kids and their families at Super Bowl in New Orleans last year. About that same number will be going out this year to the Super Bowl. MLB All-Star Games, NBA All-Star Games. The league's really full support, as well as our chapters have great relationships with every local team in the community. So we've got it both ways, local teams as well as the leagues supporting and providing access for our wish kids.
We also know that a lot of athletes and other celebrities have gotten involved in Make-A-Wish. John Cena, who retired, I think, just this past week. Michael Jordan has been involved. Why is Make-A-Wish such a great outlet for professional athletes of any stature, I guess, and celebrities in general?
Well, and actually it was John Cena who said this. Just think about this. When you have a critically ill child and they get to have anything they want and their wish is to meet you, what an honor that is. So we're very fortunate that I don't think anyone ever says no. Right? I mean, we have kids who have met all types of sports celebrities as well as celebrities in general. We've even had kids go over to Rome and meet the Pope. The Pope even says yes. right? And I do want to go back to just the importance of sports and that support of it. I mean, in addition to the leagues and the teams, y'all are aware of the ESPN My Wish series. What an incredible program that's been going on for, I think, 18 years now, really helping educate the general public about Make-A-Wish and the power of a wish. We've got WWE, incredible partner. And then just, gosh, I guess it was 2 years ago, we're going into our third year with Fanatics, has come on board as our official sports partner of Make-A-Wish. So yes, sports is very important as it relates to Make-A-Wish. Lots of support.
As David mentioned that in the introduction, you had a very successful career in traditional sports marketing before you made the leap in the not-for-profit world. How I feel like Linda Baldwin in Coffee Talk, compare and contrast. How are they similar and how are they different?
Let's talk about how they're similar, right? Sports.
Okay.
Huge platform, right? Touches everybody. I mean, you open up the newspaper, go online, there's a dedicated sports page, right? People are passionate about sports. Same thing in the nonprofit world, right? I mean, my first engagement was with the American Cancer Society. Cancer touches 1 in 4. Again, huge, they're both huge platforms, cause, nonprofit, as well as sports. And then it's making a difference, right? In sports, you're working with sponsors and delivering consumer engagement, addressing the fans' wants and needs. Over on the nonprofit side, same thing. You're raising funds. I lead corporate, always have. I love the corporate side of nonprofit, where you're engaging that company and supporting a cause that their employees care about, that their consumers care about. So deepening that connection between the brand, the corporate brand, and a cause that their consumer cares about and the community cares about, right? So again, just kind of huge platforms and delving into people's passion about what they care about. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Totally. You just made reference to American Cancer Society. I mentioned that in my intro because that was a very important stop for you, your 12 years that you spent at American Cancer Society. And as consumers of sports, we see those connections through viewing of various sporting events. And there seems to be a lot of support within the sports community for that organization as well. Can you explain some of the partnerships that you were involved with during your time at ACS and, kind of things that you were particularly proud of?
Well, this partnership existed when I joined ACS, but not too early. I think Coaches versus Cancer, 1993, I joined in 2001. But Coaches versus Cancer, that partnership with the NCAA, huge partnership. And I think to date has raised well over $100 million. And again, that suits and sneakers, again, being on national television, bringing awareness to the organization and to the cause. Hockey Fights Cancer, same type of situation. But during my time there, and I am very, very proud of this, Anna Isaacson, y'all know Anna, right? At the NFL's Crucial Catch, the American Cancer Society, we created that partnership back in 2009, and here it still exists today. It's raised over 35, maybe 40 million. There's a reason why it's called Early Catch. It's focused in on early detection, Crucial Catch, early detection. Those funds actually support early detection programs. I think I saw a data point recently. I think almost 2 million people have had early detection opportunities because of those funds.
We love it when there's connections between guests, past and present. And we recently had Ted Dalton on the show.
Ted.
And he brought up your name when he was talking about the start of his career with Disney's Wide World of Sports. And for those of us who've been around this business for a certain amount of time, we recall that particular venue as being something really special. So talk to us about what it was like to be part of Disney's Wide World of Sports, and how did that shape your future roles?
Oh, that's a great question. Wow, it was really an exciting time. Disney had made the decision to move into sports, and they were interested in bringing people in that had worked in sports, right? And so Reggie Williams was the VP, Y'all, I'm sure, know Mike Millay. Mike Millay had been in New Orleans, one of the early sports commission directors bringing special events in. He was on that team, and Mike and I knew each other. And when they were looking to hire kind of the team that would help build it out, Mike had me come in. I met with Reggie and some others, and I joined the team. Unbelievable to be part of the Disney organization. The venue didn't exist. I mean, one day they were just plowing dirt and in the morning, and we'd do a walkthrough in the afternoon, and there'd be 24 beautiful palm trees and sod laying down. I mean, unbelievable. And the whole idea about it was, Disney World, such a destination. People were passionate about the theme parks, the brand, the experience. Why not expand that to sports where, again, I use the word passion, where kids and their families are passionate about their sport, and they're competing. So let's bring all that to Walt Disney World into the state-of-the-art venue. Had basketball, right? Baseball, football fields, soccer fields, tennis at the time. So that was the idea. And just to see that come out of the ground within, I think, 18 to 24 months, and then hosting these big events, the NFL Quarterback Challenge. That's when the WNBA was starting, and they were on site. The Atlanta Braves came down to do their spring training. And actually, to be authentic, we brought the AAU relocated down from Indianapolis to be on Walt Disney World property. That's where their headquarters is even today. When I go out to play golf out there about twice a month, I drive by it and I go, oh, I remember that. So really, it was an incredible experience, and just a lot of really smart people who cared about sports and wanted to make a difference in the future generation.
Before David gets to his next question, we have a tradition on this show, Flo. If one of our guests calls out a great question, the person who didn't write the question has to give credit to the person who did write the question, and that was David's question. So I think it wasn't even close this year.
Now we're gonna also do a live correction from something I missed last week, because there was one I should have given and I didn't, so I'm going to say it now. Even though I've pretty much dominated this year, and Tim is like a skins match, like he said, has ceded the entire year to me, because it's up now anyway. So I won the year in terms of great questions, but that's just the way we roll.
So you won. You wanted to make sure you.
I won this year. I think he's probably won the last 2 years. So it was nice. I worked. I mean, it was part of one of my goals going into 2025.
And Tim, I just noticed he wanted to make sure you knew he won.
Tim's very good about giving these accolades. He generally, if I go a little Diego Pavia, like the guy that didn't win the Heisman, that got it all attitude wise, if I do a little of that, he jumps on me a little, and rightfully so, because we don't, we're not a cocky show.
Well, I am so magnanimous that I wasn't even going to call out the fact that David didn't give me credit for the question last week.
Yeah, which is understandable given how far behind you are this year, but
you know what? You know what's interesting about people who work in sports? It doesn't matter what part of sports. We're all competitive. We are all very competitive.
Yeah,
and I think it makes a difference. I think it makes a difference.
But I will say this to David, as my old Scottish grandmother would say, mocking is catching.
Ooh.
And what that means is it's sort of like, watch what you say, because it's going to come back and bite you in the future.
I know that. He's always one shot away, and he's quick enough, and I recognize that he will drop it.
But
I want to go back.
Can I add one more thing? Because I remember the end of that question, Tim. You said, how did it help shape me, or what did I really take away from it? And again, That
was probably Tim's part of the question, but
I think it's just part of the Disney organization, but I've taken it with me. Anything is possible if you think of it, right? I mean, really, if you think it can be, make it be. And I think that was one of the big things I took away. Anything is possible.
Well, and that's a very Disney attitude, of course. I remember when it was breaking ground, I did several visits there for potential events. And I think because you and I knew each other from the Bud Light U.S. Triathlon Series back in that day, and I think you were there and met Phil and met Reggie, I imagine. But I remember my original thought being, I don't know if I get it, with everything that I did feel like I knew about Disney. But when you got there and you saw what was being built and what was created, it was completely in line with the rest of the Disney model. Let's bring them there. Let's provide an unforgettable experience, be able to keep them on property. And it just adds to everything else that we can offer any family that might be interested in coming here, whether it's for a sporting event or I actually did. My daughter got to the nationals in a cheerleading competition when she was young, and it was there, and it was unbelievable. We stayed at the All-Star, and
now it's ESPN's Wide World of Sports. Just to clarify.
Yeah.
So those were special years.
We would love to give you an opportunity to talk about any way that individuals and corporations can get involved in Make-A-Wish in the fullest breadth of opportunities that they have, to just let our listeners know.
Well, individuals first, you can always donate, right? You can always donate. But to get engaged, we have our local chapters in communities throughout the country. Just reach out, volunteer, get involved in our walks and our galas, volunteer, become a wish granter. Wish granters wanted, right? So I would encourage everyone just to contact your local Make-A-Wish office, or you can always go to wish.org to learn more. And then for companies, again, just we align with almost every CSR pillar when you look at it: community, empowerment, health, emotional well-being. So there's lots of opportunities to engage on that side, but also engage in communities and engage your consumer in a cause that everyone loves. And content is king, right? It continues to be more and more important. And the storytelling and content around Make-A-Wish and our Wish Kids is incredible. We get a lot of media attention and pickup because that wish journey and that wish experience is so special and unique that it's we've got probably over 50 partners engaged. I mean, and they're with us for years, right? Disney's been with us since day one. Subaru is going over 15 years now, and hopefully you're seeing we're in their national spot this year. So again, great opportunity to sponsor, support, activate. It's more than just writing a corporate check. We'll work with you to create customized activations for both employee engagement as well as consumer engagement.
Before we let you go, Flo, we have two questions we'd like to ask all our guests. So I'll ask the first one. How did you get your start in the sports business?
I was a tennis player. I was hitting that ball in between some lines and teaching and coaching. And then my best friend had just gotten into triathlon, Lynn Brooks. She's a legend in the sport. And I think it was the second year of the Ironman. And we were living in Baltimore. And I think it was the first year it went over to Kona. And you needed a crew back then. So I got to go to Kona. And I saw the Ironman for the first time. God, 81 maybe, 82. And I went, this is not a fad. This is really going to be a sport. And a year and a half, I just up and moved to California and got involved with a group of people doing Sally Edwards was big out there running Fleet Feet and involved in triathlons. And then that's when I met Carl Thomas and joined Cat Sports. And we were producing the United States Triathlon Series around the country. And I actually was a part of TriFed, the governing body. So that kind of got me into sports marketing. And then I moved to Disney, Wide World of Sports, and then Actually, my last 2 years at Disney, I moved over to the business development side and started corporate business development, sponsorship, and then took me into.
You went to the dark side. You went to the dark sales side.
And then that's when nonprofits were just getting up. I was jumping ahead, but that's how I got into sports marketing, was through triathlon and just putting on events and then engaging the sponsors, selling the sponsors. We had the NFL Quarterback Challenge that Cat Sports created. So just building those relationships and those events.
Okay, last question. What's one piece of advice you would give to a young person looking to break into the industry, whether it's the sports industry or the not-for-profit world?
I remember what Ted said, because he and I chatted after that. That's true. Sports is a business, so you have to have that business hat on. And I would say the same with nonprofit, right? Especially if you're going from the for-profit to the nonprofit. Nonprofit organizations love that experience that you bring in. So it's always your talent is going to be appreciated and needed in that nonprofit space. So I think you just reach out to the organization, and I'll go back to the word passion, same as sports, same as a cause that you care about. Be passionate about it, but come in serious and bring all that business acumen that you have to supporting and delivering on the mission.
Great.
Thank you very much for that. It's the ending here was unbelievable because we had Ted Dalton, who was on the show, reference a quarterback challenge founded by Cat Sports with Carl Thomas, who we just did the podcast for, hasn't aired yet, but we did it. And Frank Vuno, because of his NFL properties, we had him on recently. It's just unbelievable. It's going to be hard to say we're not the center of the sports business at some point. I mean, I don't know how what do you think?
Small world. It's a small world, and you guys are.
I keep trying to promote it as such, and Tim's like, "Come on, man, get serious."
I'm not even a household name in my own household.
With that,
thank you,
Flo. Thank you so much. A wonderful holiday to you. We appreciate you coming on, and excited that we were able to talk to you on this, our final show of the 2025 season.
Thank you for having me. It was fun to catch up. I enjoyed the conversation. Wish.org. Go donate.
Okay.
Thanks for that.
We will put that in the write-up.
Thank you both. Take care. Happy holidays.
We are back, and thank you again to Flo Bryan, the Chief Corporate Alliance Officer at Make-A-Wish. Check it out at wish.org. What a great show, and David, thank you for suggesting we do something about such a wonderful cause for our last show of the year during the holiday season.
I was half tempted to think that we should offer up a podcast, but we'll have to discuss that to Flo. I don't know if it'd get any takers.
Well, I'm reminded about we were given as a prize in a sweepstakes, and first prize was one guest on being a guest one time on the show, and second prize was being a guest two times on the show.
Yeah, but it is a great organization.
It is. They do wonderful work.
Really fun stuff, and it just is for the modern day, because the content that they're able to generate out of some of the great wishes that they grant, just tremendous. And along that, we mentioned John Cena earlier. I mean, it's one of the first things I just wanted to mention, like a shout out to John Cena after an amazing career. I mean, he's obviously in every commercial that Kevin Hart is not in, it seems. And so I expect that we'll see him. But they broke a record, WWE did, for highest grossing arena gate in history of the organization with John Cena's farewell just a few days ago. So amazing career in terms of the following that he's generated there. I also wanted to say that the F1, the movie, is now available. You had mentioned it, and its release date on Apple TV. It is out now and available to be seen. There is some other big F1 news coming out that actually just kind of grabbed my attention, in that I still, I guess, like to talk about F1. Portugal is coming back on the calendar for 2027 and 28. And I find this interesting because this year, next year, 2026, there will be 2 Grand Prix in Spain. Now, the traditional Spanish Grand Prix had been in Barcelona. Madrid was added for next year, and they're getting to take the Spanish Grand Prix title with them. But I do think that Barcelona's days are a bit numbered. They're not necessarily off, but their contract runs through next year. With Portugal coming on, if that hits, I have a hard time believing that there would be 3 races in that Iberian Peninsula, I guess we'll call that. But who knows? Some other traditional ones have come off, and Stefano Domenicali, who runs Formula One for Liberty Media, is out saying the interest level for cities hosting is just off the chart. And obviously, Saudi would want 2 races if they could get it. So the money in terms of luring races is huge. But the question for F1 is logistics and making sure that they keep a balance around the world, I think. So that's really all I had. We already talked about Heisman and the correction on not giving you the credit on the question from that Adam Stern called out. So with that, I'll turn it over to you. What do you have your eye on?
Well, there's a couple things. There are reports coming out of women's basketball that the WNBA Players Association wants 2 times the revenue share that's being proposed by ownership now. So we have less than a month in this extension. That's a big delta, right? Negotiations happen between the 2 sides, between what they're both asking. But when you are that far apart, it's going to be very challenging for both sides to come to an agreement. So I'm certainly going to be watching that. The other thing we continue to watch, we're now less than 7 months away from the World Cup coming here to North America. Number one, ticket prices are 5 times what they were just 3.5 years ago in Qatar, which is going to price a lot of people out of the market. But apparently there were 5 million ticket requests in this latest offer. So I have no doubt that every match is going to be sold out, but who's going to be there is the question.
Yeah, I think there's going to be an issue. Obviously, the mayor-elect of New York City, Zoran Mamdani, has made that. He's a huge soccer fan, and he made a campaign spot about World Cup pricing for games at MetLife, and that they were going away from the model of having some locals be able to afford tickets. And I think that's going to be the case. I have to think other mayors will use that from a political standpoint because it's brutal. I'm not going to say who this is, but I got a call from a friend of the show and an expert in the sport of soccer about something to do with Airbnb, a global partner of FIFA on this, and them having trouble policing pricing increases after the fact, after Airbnbs have been booked. And that's going to be a potential problem. And it brings up this whole idea of, sponsors' roles in those type of activities around their big events. But I thought that was very curious and interesting.
Also, what is interesting, we've been talking about past guests. I don't know who you spoke to, but Eduardo Solis, who ran corporate partnerships for FIFA and left about, I want to say 6 or 8 months ago, to take the role in-house at Airbnb to manage their FIFA sponsorship. I don't know how involved he'll be, but my hope is to have Eduardo on sometime between now and
that'd be great.
And the tournament to have him talk about it from the other side, from the sponsor side. You would think on some level, going from 32 nations to 48 nations and corresponding increase in matches, the supply has gone up, but the demand has outpaced the supply, hence the higher ticket prices. So the one thing I think people should rightfully take exception to is FIFA's promise that there would be affordable tickets, and there are not. I don't begrudge an organization from making maximum revenue from an event when demand is that high, but they did say that they were going to have affordable tickets, and they have not. So we'll see. Sort of the flip side of that coin is they recently announced, as a result, at least in large part from what went on last summer at Club World Cup here in North America, they're going to have in-game breaks, 3 minutes per half for every match, regardless of whether the match is indoors or outdoors, so that every match is being contested under the same same rules and so forth. But that's 6 additional 30-second spots per half, potentially, for Fox to sell. Now, they haven't announced formally that they're going to be offering those 30-second spots, but come on. I mean, and if those,
yeah, for anyone in the business, the minute we heard that, our expectation is that that's a big reason they're doing it. And it does make sense to do a break, but then to offer it across the board, which is, if you are a follower of this sport, that is not the way that matches usually play out. So sure, it's going to be interesting to see what they do. But to your point, because it fits in the same thing, is responsibility to maximize the revenue that they can derive from these events? Sure, because that is what helps FIFA fulfill its mission. The only thing I'll say is, when its mission is supposedly 100% focused on growth of the sport, that should mean something as well. So I do think that and I think you support that idea, should have been careful about that affordability. Obviously, corporations are going to pay a big number, to get their suites and their blocks of tickets and so forth. And people that have the money to do it should pay for it because that's what they want to do with their money. But the sport it's kind of the people's sport, right?
Mm-hmm.
Globally. And it would be tough to know that, particularly on the local side, the cities that are hosting these events, that it will be very difficult for people to actually get tickets. But we'll see how things end up playing out.
I mean, I'm glad that the interest is there.
Yes.
Every match will be televised. And also, most, if not all, MLS clubs are going to be offering watch parties in their cities, in their home stadiums. So there are opportunities to do. There's nothing like going to an event like a World Cup match. But unfortunately, the way the economics work out, it's going to be beyond the reach of a lot of people. So, all right, with that, I think it's time we close on another episode, and more importantly, another year. I want to thank you, David, for another fun year. 44 episodes. Hard to believe. That's boy, oh boy. That's like two seasons of a primetime television show, aren't they? Typically,
prolific. Yeah,
we were. Yeah, or annoying might even be the word we said.
Prolifically annoying. Annoyingly prolific, whichever one you want to use first.
Overexposed is another term that comes to mind. We were the Nate Bargatze of podcast. No, but thank you. Thank you to all of you who listen. Please like, subscribe, tell your friends, ask questions, follow us on all the big social platforms. You can find everything at dpandmcgee.com. Want to wish you, David, and everybody out there a very happy holiday season. Happy Hanukkah, happy Kwanzaa, Merry Christmas, whatever you happen to celebrate, and a safe and peaceful New Year. Until we see you early next year, he's DP, I'm McGhee, and we'll talk soon.